But what happens the day that I no longer have might? They're merely reinforcing the notion that I have to continue to have might to survive here because there's no acceptance that I am here by right, that the Jewish people are indigenous to this land, that they're connected to it, that they are here by right, not by might. And I realized there's no symmetry here. Their moderation is an acknowledgement of a reality, which maybe they will hope to change if Israel grows weak. But my recognition of them is genuine. It's about their right to self-determination in this land. And I went back from these meetings deeply troubled, and it really affected my thinking, combined with all the other things I described. And then about a couple years ago, I got an email from the organizer of the meetings. And she told me, the email said, one of our funders of the meetings would like to know if these meetings had any impact on England. And I wrote back to her. I said they had a tremendous impact on my thinking. I'm not sure the funder will be happy to know in which direction. And she asked me what happened, and I shared this experience with her. And she went back to me and she said, well, you're absolutely wrong. There are many people who share your views. I was like, one would be wonderful, please. I've been searching for a while now. I've been speaking around the world. I have found no one that is willing to recognize the right of the Jewish people to self-determination in their land. I'm not saying a superior right. I'm not saying an exclusive right, but a right. So she said, no, there's many people. I was like, fine, send me. So she started sending me emails from the participants in the program, and the email said things like, I yearn for the day when we will have peace between Israel and Palestine with its capital in East Jerusalem. And I was like, no, not good enough anymore. I've heard the tone, I've heard the music, this is not good enough anymore. So she was, okay, tell me what would be good enough. What do you want to hear that will tell you that you have partners on the other side? So I penned the following paragraph. It said the following. It said, the Jewish people around the world and the Arab Palestinians around the world are both indigenous to the land of Israel/Palestine. Both have the right to return and settle anywhere in the land. But given the fact that these are two different peoples, different nations, different histories, different sense of self, religions, they agree that for the sake of peace they will divide the land between a Jewish state Israel and an Arab state Palestine, and both states will not be exclusive for their own people and will accommodate minorities of the other people. That was basically what I did. And I sent it to her and I said, that would be good enough. That is a mutual and equal recognition of the connection of both sides to the land. And then she disappeared. And I didn't hear a response, and I was very disappointed. And I wrote a piece detailing kind of this process in my thinking and how it shaped me. And I sent it to her and I said, look, I'm about to publish it. Is there really no one? And at the very last minute she sent me someone who said, yes. And I was like, really? At this point I was growing, of course, very suspicious. I met him at the King David Hotel. We sat, we spoke, and I realized he was genuine. He genuinely spoke about the fact that the Palestinians were wrong to reject the partition recommendation of 1947, that the Jewish people are connected to this land, that we need to make peace based on this recognition. And it was wonderful. So I was able to publish this piece, and it got this title, Israeli Leftist Finds Glimmer of Hope. You can find it easily if you Google. And I can tell you something about him. His name is Professor Adegani. And you might have heard about him recently because he was, and was as important here, he was the head of the American Studies Department in Al-Quds University, a Palestinian university in East Jerusalem. And he lost his job over the fact that he recently took his students to an educational tour of Auschwitz. So it already gives you a sense that he's a very unique and courageous person. He comes from one of the oldest families, and I think that gives him a bit of that background and kind of standing. But the thing is this, for him to have his views, he needs tremendous courage. For me to have my views, I don't need courage. A large share of the Israeli public supports them. But in that sense, there's still no symmetry. A large share of the Israeli public accepts, supports, the right of the Arab Palestinians to self-determination in this land and to their own state, and for an Arab Palestinian to recognize the right of the Jewish people to self-determination in this land, he needs to be truly unique and courageous. And the reason that I mention him is, in addition to the story, is that he also got me thinking on all of these movements to boycott, to isolate Israel. One of the first organizations, academic organizations, to boycott Israel was the American Studies Association. He was the head of the American Studies Department in Al-Quds University. And yet the American Studies Association had zero to say about the fact that he lost his job as head of the American Studies Department in his university over the fact that he took his students to an educational tour of Auschwitz. And this has really led me to truly see the hypocrisy in all these claims. Because boycotting Israel, but then having nothing to say about the head of the American Studies Department losing his job and his role over teaching Palestinian students the Holocaust, well, I cannot imagine greater hypocrisy. And that's the thing that concerns me ultimately, that there's a lot of people of goodwill that get roped into a lot of these movements, the boycott, the solidarity, the justice for Palestine. But they never, and they think that by doing so they're promoting peace. I want peace. Who doesn't? But the people who are leading these movements, they don't want peace the way I described it. They don't want peace in the sense of accepting the right of the Jewish people and the Arab Palestinians equally to this land. They believe that the Jewish people here are foreigners, interlopers, that they have taken a foreign land, that they're colonialists, which means that with enough resistance and force and violence, they can be made to go away. And that is not a very peaceful notion. And a lot of people of goodwill who want peace get roped into these things. They go into an organization that is called Justice for Palestine. And who doesn't want justice for Palestine? I want justice for Palestine, until you understand that the injustice that needs to be corrected is the very existence of the State of Israel. The very existence of the right to self-determination of the Jewish people in this land. This is the injustice that needs to be corrected, and therefore justice for Palestine means superseding the State of Israel, erasing the State of Israel. Again, not a very peaceful notion. So this is why, despite the fact that I continue to be very much a supporter of peace and of two states, I have become someone who these days campaigns for equal recognition of rights, and asking that anyone who claims that they are acting for peace in a way demonstrate their credentials by supporting the equal rights of both peoples to the land and not privileging one people over another.